Education session to order. Procedural notes. This session will be held electronically as per section 19(1) of the town's procedural bylaw number 6228-19 as amended due to the COVID-19 situation. Councilor, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councilor Humphreys, Councilor Kim, comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we have one item. It's Vision 2031 Integrated Business Planning Process. Mr. CEO, pass it to you. Council, just so you're aware, our CEO will give us a little bit of brief intro, then we'll hear from Martin with the presentation, and then our CEO will close it off, and then I'll ask for comments or questions at that point. Okay? Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Maracas, members of council. On behalf of the executive leadership team and our corporate management team, I'm pleased to be here tonight to start off this update session on the Town of Aurora's corporate strategic planning process. Don't worry, this is not a working night for you. This is an information night, first and foremost. We don't expect to keep you too long, but we felt it was important at this time to update you on our progress. You've all heard me reference over the years that I think we need to transition Aurora from small town to large town in the ways that we do business and manage the resources of the organization. You may have also heard me say that I like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and particularly the habit of beginning with the end in mind. Tonight, the real end in mind is actually the beginning of the next term of council. At that time, in early 2023, we plan on having a full system in place that allows the town to align the strategic priorities of council with the business plans of the organization and the council-approved budget to support them. We also want to have a well-defined way of tracking our progress. Tonight, we want to show you the work that we've been doing and our progress towards that end. We started this journey actually in 2018-19 when we embarked on a process to simply do better business planning. In 2019, you'll remember at the beginning of this term, council went through a strategic planning process that resulted in the identification of a number of priorities, namely downtown revitalization, Library Square, and smart growth. Through conversations with you since then, and as well as with our leaders in the organization, it became clear that we needed to tackle both council's priorities as well as our own internal business planning process in a unified way. They could not be separate processes. Our overarching goal as council and as administration is always to support Aurora's transition from small town to big town, but focused on the priorities of council and the community. So over the last 18 months, our management team has evolved quite a bit to become more coordinated in business planning to support council's priorities. We now work across silos and plan together for the whole organization. This is very much still a work in progress. There is lots more to do, but we wanted to take this opportunity to report on the progress to date and the plans for the future. So before I turn this over to Martin to take us through the update, I want to summarize our progress towards a goal. First, we established and promoted our internal mission, vision, and values for the organization, which helped the team check in from time to time to ensure that our activities were reflecting our agreed to standards. We established the core management and business planning process known as the Integrated Business Planning Process, or the IBPP, as you're going to hear lots about tonight. And we test drove the system in 2019 and 2020 to inform our budget recommendations that you saw for 2021 and 2022, getting us one step closer to a systematic approach to multi-year capital and operating budget preparation. Over the last 6 months, our corporate management team has worked to improve the IBPP and build a better and more collaborative management culture across the organization. The business planning and management process you will hear about today has been the collective work of our corporate management team and the ELT, and has continued to progress throughout the pandemic. Beyond Aurora, municipalities such as Burlington, London, Newmarket, Vaughan, and even York Region have taken note of the work we are doing as it is seen as an innovative approach to municipal business planning. There is quite a bit of detail in some of tonight's presentation. It is intended only to illustrate the process that has been established by our management group to execute council's and the organization's priorities. There's no test tonight or approval asked for. It's not our intention to drive you into the details of the work we are doing, but we do want you to see that there is a good process behind what we are doing. We look forward to showing you the work that we have done on your behalf. With that, I'll turn this over to Martin Stefanczyk, our Program Manager for Corporate Initiatives, to take us through the presentation. Martin, if you will.
Thank you very much, Doug, and thank you, Council, for having me here speak to you today about the integrated business planning process. I'm going to share my screen very quickly. So more than anything, today's conversation is about collaboration and the collaborative effort, as our CEO spoke to, with respect to CMT and ELT, really taking a good look at how we do business and how we orient our business to delivering better services and enable council to make better, more informed decisions through our recommendations. We call this the integrated business planning process. So we'll cover a few items. We'll talk about the process in general. We'll talk about the story to date, the strategic cascade, the corporate strategic plan, and the made-in-Aurora approach to business planning. We'll have the CEO's closing remarks shortly after. With respect to business planning, and I know I developed this slide thinking, any organization, we look at a lot of information and we try to make heads and tails out of it. Think of these icons as plans, decisions, information, strategy. All of these things are coming at us. So how do we enable ourselves to make sense of this and then enable us to make better decisions? And that's really what the IBP is all about, to sequence our activities, our resources, and eventually look for relationships across the organization, whether it's through strategic documents, plans, departments, to better align how we do business and how we deliver value to our citizens. So that's the goal of the IBP. The story to date. So we started in 2018-19, and it was a really amazing week, I would say, with CMT and ELT, facilitated by our partners at Juice Consulting. And we came out of this with a big room full of stickies and a sort of a big like to-do list of things. But we said, whatever we move forward with, let's agree on the following. The process that we develop should be transparent. We should be accountable to each other. We should manage our collisions, and we should keep an open mind. So as we progressed, we always checked back to these principles to make sure that are we on the right track as we develop this concept. Coming out of that session, we looked at several questions. So can we develop a clear process that shows a link between strategic priorities and investment decisions? What parts do we have? What parts are missing? What do we need to invest our time in? Can we use technology to automate our business planning? Automation is a big deal. It saves administrative time, saves staff inputs, and allows us to move forward faster and quicker, being more responsive. Can we forecast demand on our internal resources? So rather than thinking about or reacting to situations, how do we look ahead 1 year, 2 years, to look at the demands on our various departments and our partners across the organization to determine viability of certain initiatives? And can we prioritize our capital investments through a consistent method and enhance the quality of information moving forward for council budget consideration? So that, with the principles, really drove the development of this process. With respect to collaboration, for the last six to 8 months, every single member of the CMT and ELT team had an opportunity to participate and added value to pretty much every aspect of this process. Teams were established and divided across various modules like integration, how do systems talk better to each other, how are ideas evaluated through the evaluation matrix, and strategic priority conversations. How do we better align the Vision 2031 document your priorities of downtown revitalization, smart growth, and economic development, and into a corporate strategic plan that the administration can use. How do we capture all of that through one single process? Well, I'm happy to say we did it. We did it. It's something that it's been an amazing few years, but we're well on our way to accomplishing that. But we really have something special here. And starting with the strategic cascades. So how do we translate the voice of our citizens and council's priorities, translating that into action? The corporate strategic plan was developed and our why was answered. And lastly, the key process steps. We made a Made in Aurora method to business planning to integrate all of those pieces. So with respect to strategic cascades, I'll spend a few minutes on each section. So big question mark there. Where we start is several moving pieces all over the chessboard, and corporate strategic plan, it's council priorities, it's the vision document, it's the KPIs, it's resource management. All of those things are staring at us, and we're saying, well, how do we actually sequence all of these activities, keeping the voice of the citizen at its center? It took us some effort and some time to take a look at with the voice of the citizen at the center. Translated to the vision document through your council priorities. The Vision 2031 reflected in the strategic plan that we recently developed. Look at pillars and the associated items in the corporate strategic plan to align with the multi-year budget process, as well as took note and inventory of existing documents in the corporation and how they influence the development of those recommendations. So that's the official plan, master plan, studies, the 10-year capital plan, multi-year budget process, resulting with the budget approval. After that, we looked at, well, how are our business units plans for implementation? And then we are starting to embark on the next aspect of this, which is the KPI development, which you will hear soon about. That is our strategic cascade, and that is the sequence of events that we think will result in better recommendations and evidence-based decision-making that we have been after for so long at the town. The corporate strategic plan. The corporate strategic plan is set up across three main sections: the strategic priority statement, an objective. An example, experience. So making sure citizens have the best possible experiences. They participate in our programs and services, access the front desk, or during this unprecedented time, remote access to various programs and services. The priority statement is a commit to providing a positive citizen experience with each touch point. And then we've layered several objectives, developing opportunities for modernization, i.e. self-serve needs of our customers. We take a look at the entirety of the corporate strategic plan, and this is a little bit detailed, but it's just a visual. It goes across 6 pillars, ranging from promoting community safety and wellness to investing in our people. The intent is to ensure, and you will see shortly, how all projects and initiatives that are moving forward for consideration are filtered through this sequence and align. With respect to the Made in Aurora IBP approach, there are main steps or 4 sections to this process. One, identifying capital needs, as you're familiar with respect to the 10-year capital plan. In step 2, we take a look at the next 2, 3, or 4 years, depending on the cycle of projects, and we apply a very unique lens that seeks to answer questions with respect to economic, accessibility, reputational development for the town of Aurora. We rank and score those projects and initiatives through an automated algorithm in one of our newer project management platforms, Smartsheet. Lastly, reporting, all of that information is taken and then this easily viewed dashboard that you will hopefully see in a few moments. The project intake application, we're not going to spend too much detail time on this, but it answers 3 questions. Who are you? What would you like to do? And how is it being paid for? Those are the 3 questions that correspond to all of these sections. With respect to the eval matrix, so this is sort of the engine that drives every single part, every single proposal that moves through and eventually is recommended to council through our ELT. The eval matrix answers 2 questions. How impactful are our projects? Can we realistically accomplish the project, excuse me. The projects are graded on a strength score of 100 according to 4 dimensions: service improvement and reputational management, reliability, and ease of implementation. Service improvements answering questions such as, is this actually doing good for the community? Is it enhancing certain levels of service? Reputational management, traditionally projects that are not brick and mortar type are hard to quantify, but we thought it would be very important to add a dimension of reputational management or development for the town of Aurora. So projects, as an example, resident surveys, different types of resident engagement activities are captured and considered. Implementation, so how long will a project take and how much will it cost is roughly the dimensions there. And financial viability. Is this financially viable as a project? Lastly, with respect to business reporting, everything is fed through several systems, but the end result is a very nice clean dashboard that I will show in a few moments. So that being said, let me just hop out of here. And right here. Okay. Screen 2. So as I mentioned, the entirety of, oh, sorry about that. There we go. The entirety of all project information is fed through this. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about a form because they're as exciting as, but there are two important parts to note here. Okay. One, the alignment. So what area of the strategic priority align with? So each must be selected priority. The level of community priority, are partnership opportunities that decrease cost, is the regional part, impact, reputation management, etc. And other sort of dimensions, but we're trying to apply that lens to projects that's traditionally not applied. And then the section is the interdivisional support. So as I mentioned, we're trying to move away from a what do we do to we are about to do the following things in 6 months, 8 months, and a year. Any project owner to tell us about this type of support that is needed on a specific project. That way we can project out multiple years ahead, and you'll see the demonstration of this in a moment. All of this is said and done. The formulas, again, if you're formulas, but the algorithms are nested if statements. They're automatically grading projects instantaneously. The second someone clicks submit, all of this work is already set up and it's all done. We are now implementing automatic notifications to various departments at the time of submission so that corresponding managers can, in real time, take a look at workload demands and take a look at expected project starts and see how they best can support. So if I stopped here with this sheet, it would not be very good. So where all of this goes here in a visual, right? If you look at all projects, and this was projects through the Power BI platform or dashboard, of projects to various priorities from counts, look at strategic priority investments. Just if you could please confirm that you see a bunch of charts. Yes, okay, good, fantastic, thank you. And most important, real time. What happens is projects about it certain targeting certain just say expenditures, targeting certain targeting certain scores or thresholds. Most important part of this aspect is that now have rich context, meaning when we as a CMT group have conversations now enriched by are being improved. Is this project financially viable? Is this project easy, or is there an ease of implementation? That criteria, and having conversations within that context that was previously unavailable to us. And the last part is, as I mentioned, those resource conversations. So what happens when we have 140 requests for projects, as we did in the last round of budget? What we can do now is start projecting based on those questions, i.e., when do you need interdivision support? That support looks like from our corporate comms, procurement. What happens in the upcoming years, in 2020, in which month? This allows us to better plan our resources, adjust schedules accordingly, and ensure that the most realistic scenarios move forward for consideration. So that business reporting.
Hey, Martin, can I just say, you're cutting in and out. Would you be able to, yeah, I don't know why I keep you're coming in and you're going out. So.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Where did I lose you?
Well, I've been able to follow, but it's like putting the pieces together. So just to be aware of that.
Okay. Did you hear the last part about the projections of resources? Yes. Okay, yeah. Fantastic. And I'll try to get closer to the machine, but I don't know if that's going to work.
Yeah, you sound a lot better now when you're like that.
Oh, okay then. Okay, then just if it gets too shiny off the forehead, then you let me know. But okay, so so as I mentioned, the projections of resource demands, we're able to do that now, and we're able to say what is the demand on various departments, which is like, it's an amazing conversation to have in a room with my peers to say, well, how can we help get this done, right? What do we need to change in terms of schedules? What do we need to change to still accomplish these goals, rather than coming last minute or sort of on demand? That's the type of view that's been just an incredible shift for our perspectives, and really stress reducing, I would say. So that, and let me go back to sharing screen. So that's the process demonstration. And in terms of our commitments going forward, what we're looking at is we're now updating the IBP with the latest round of feedback. As our CEO mentioned, we had about 6 to 8 months worth of working groups to try to look at different modules of this process. And right now those updates are happening to be ready for the next budget cycle. The development planning of key KPI indicator KPIs, that is going to be an ELT CMT joint effort, and we expect that to start right after budget, so that so a plan and as well as some testing is done by early 2022, and then getting ready for the incoming council in 2022. It will be increasingly important to look at your priorities and to make sure that your priorities are reflected in the next IBP process. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you, and I'll just pass it to our CEO.
Thanks, Martin. Doug?
Thank you. You want to stop sharing the screen there, Martin, please? Thank you. So thank you, Martin. And as you can probably gather from his presentation, Martin has been the driving force behind this work. He's brought an energy and a passion for this that has kept the CMT and the ELT engaged and excited about the progress we're making. And I want to thank him for his excellent leadership on this initiative. I also want to thank our partners at JUICE for their assistance throughout this process. Brady Wilson, who led Council's strategic planning session in 2019, and his colleague JF Eval have been working closely with Martin and directly with the CMT in particular to get us this far with this process. In closing, hopefully you see how we are creating a comprehensive process that will better align the entire organization behind the priorities of Council, both now and for future councils. What were disconnected processes, strategic planning, business planning, budgeting, are now being aligned. As I said in my introduction, we are not done yet. This is still very much a work in progress, but we are excited about the potential for the future. So thank you for your time tonight. And if you have any questions or comments, we would welcome any feedback that you have. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Martin. Any comments, questions? Councillor Humphries.
I just have a quick comment. Thank you very much. It's obviously a huge governance process is what I'm hearing, and that there's connectivity, and it's going to be, if you adhere to this governance, you can't help but be successful. You need the cadence against it. So it sounds very, very effective, very efficient. There's formal forms and everything else. So it sounds like a huge, almost like a program management process that needs to be followed by the ELT. And I love that you're looking with the residents, what the residents need, what's council's priorities. I think you've got, and then the financial viability, I think you've got them in the right order. So just a quick question, is this a process that, we developed in-house, or this is something that like the IBP or whatever it called, integrated business plan process, is that something that's being adhered to through other municipalities? But it sounds like a great program.
Martin, Martin, did you want to answer that?
Yes, please, through you, Mr. Chair. There are versions of this type of process across the municipal sector. However, the degree of automation is not present. So as you saw with the algorithms that really take care of the grading, traditionally what I've seen through my environmental scans is Excel sheets being distributed to CMT groups or corporate management groups, and then those being emailed back and forth, which is not the optimal approach, I would say. So we've really taken it to the next level of sophistication. And the other part that needs to be highlighted that is I would say unique for Aurora is the level of collaboration between our executive team and our corporate management team. So traditionally this is done, let's just say, by a specific department and then dispersed to the organization. The amazing thing about this is every single member of the management team has had a level of participation in this. So those are amazing things that are happening in Aurora.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I think that's fantastic. And you get your buy-in through you, Mr. Mayor. You get the buy-in when everybody participates, for sure. And I love that you've automated it. So yeah, no, it's fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing it roll out, and the next council will be very fortunate to have this as a startup. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to either Mr. Nadarozny or Martin, just in terms of, I guess, evaluating the effectiveness, we talk about KPIs and applying that to other factors within the organization. And so when we look at this process mapping and, my take on it and my conversations with Mr. Nadarozny is, I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to make a relatively seamless organization. What metrics or KPIs can we apply to this process to be able to determine how successful it could be or will be?
Martin, Doug? Actually, looks like Doug wants the answer. Go ahead.
So I'll start because Martin will give a better answer. So, the KPI section, and I anticipated a question from Councillor Thompson on KPIs because we've been promising KPIs, I think, since the day I arrived in Aurora, and we've had various failed attempts at tuning that up. At the highest level, we hope to do the KPIs the same way we've done some of the process development, and that is to get everybody on side and to agree what will be the most effective KPIs to demonstrate that we're making progress. So we hope to have a level of buy-in that we've never seen before in KPIs. KPIs before have been, a statistic. You take a numerator over a denominator and you apply it and you just compare year over year. And we're hoping to have something that is much more relevant and meaningful to the group so that actually everybody's engaged and interested in improving the KPIs over time. The actual KPI for this process, which I think is what you're asking for in terms of like, how do we show this process is working, is a really good question. And that's a tough question. That's what I'm going to give to Martin, because he'll ultimately be tasked with coming up with the perfect KPI to demonstrate the effectiveness of what it is we're trying to do.
Martin?
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chair. The effectiveness of the process is based on timing. So when we open the process window, which is traditionally, well, right now the first year and second round will be this year, is right during our budget window. There's a specific time window that this information needs to be in place by in order to meet several dependencies. Those dependencies include a CMT consensus meeting where we all gather together to discuss the various scheduling and various projects that are being considered and make any adjustments to that schedule. So right now, the main metric that is being used to determine is whether or not the process happens on time. Now, if we go into sub-process or sub-deliverables, we started to take a look at, for example, in round 2, the effectiveness of those algorithms. So the algorithms that result in certain project scores have area and our counterparts in operations, as well as a few other departments. And to answer the question is the result that we expect yielding a proper recommendation? The next level, or the last one that I'll speak to, and this is going to be new for this round, is what we're calling a perception score. And this will be telling of the process and evaluate whether or not the scoring is actually reflective of the reality of the information. Meaning, although we have the algorithms and the automation, we have added a subjective score to this year saying, well, what do you think this project should score for financial viability? So the manager or the individual submitting the application is able to exercise their judgment to say this should be a 90. But if the algorithm is saying that this is actually a 40, then there's a disconnect. But if both yield a 90, then we have alignment between the algorithm and the professional judgment of our CMT group. So those are just a few few items that will be used to evaluate this process. But the main one is like, is this happening on time? I'm a big schedule guy, so I just like things to happen on time. So that's the main one.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kim.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. For you too, Martin, thank you for your presentation and all the work that you put into that. There was one slide under the evaluation matrix, and I believe on one side there was verbiage about how impactful all our projects are, and can we realistically accomplish these projects. And then there was the next slide with 4 boxes with 4 criteria, and then there was a weighting inside each box. My question is how you came about with those weightings on each of those criteria.
Martin?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the weighting criteria was at its highest level looking at what is important to municipal service delivery, and that is service delivery and responsible use of taxpayer dollars. So that is why it's heavily weighted at 30 towards service improvement and 40 towards financial viability. Now, ease of implementation, it's a less sophisticated calculation because it looks at costs and time, because traditionally, and in the majority of cases, if something takes a little bit of time and costs a little bit of money, then it's easier to do. Sort of the rule of thumb with respect to ease of implementation. Reputational management was weighted a little bit lower at 10 because we wanted to capture and give credit to, as I mentioned, to certain projects that are not traditionally brick and mortar, but with the understanding that the majority of our projects are in the brick and mortar sphere. So that's why you're seeing the heavy weight towards service improvement and financial viability.
Councillor?
Thank you. I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? John? Oh, Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. Just through you, Mr. Mayor, just a quick question. I think I know the answer, but on page 18 of 28 corporate strategic plan, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of titles there. I'm just wondering if they're not in any particular order of importance, or they're just put there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Gallo, no, they are not in a particular level of importance now.
And how did we come up with those?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the first place that we started was the Vision 2031 document, and then we looked at council priorities, and we had conversations with respect to these priorities reflect the essence of the vision document as well as council priorities. Now, the council priorities that you set for us are more specific than as you can tell with respect to downtown revitalization, smart growth, and economic development. So as the administration, we looked at those and we said we need to broaden that, but broaden the different pillars to make sure that we're capturing all of the services and all of the projects that are planned, but still keeping mindful of your priorities as well as the vision document, which identifies community, economy, and the environment.
Councillor?
Okay, thank you. Are they etched in stone? I'm not suggesting I change anything, but it's still, for me, very high level, and I'm still absorbing and digesting everything, but I'm just wondering if they're set in stone.
Oh, this is a lot even for me. So through you, Mr. Chair, sorry. So this is actually, through you, Mr. Chair, this is the second iteration of this. We had an earlier version. As we were improving, in our first version, we had 80 line items that we thought captured pretty much every single detail that we could ever do inside the corporation. But we started to have, as a CMT group, have conversations around, well, is this conversational? Are these, we want to get these pillars to sort of the water cooler level, that fluency level that one of my colleagues speaks to quite a bit, Eliza. And we want people to have conversations around promoting community health and wellness and delivering services, whereas we found the 80-point list didn't do that. I don't think anyone here can remember 80 points. It's quite difficult, I would say.
Councillor?
So they're set in stone, or is there?
Sorry. They are not set in stone. They are, through you, Mr. Chair, they are subject to revisions, but we do want to make sure these are landed so that the budget considerations that are moving forward align with these priorities.
Okay, thank you. And just the next steps, where do we go from here?
Martin?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So as I mentioned, we are right now in the midst of updating the integrated business planning process with the outcomes of the last 6 to 8 months of work. We are completing our plans for the KPI indicator module and the testing, which is set to take place in the next 6 to 8 months, but starting right after budget. And then we are getting ready for the next council term.
Councillor?
So when, in terms of council, when will we next see this, or what's the next step in terms of our input or public input?
Martin? Or Mr. Sale?
So we're certainly willing to bring this back to council if there's an interest in seeing more detail. We are, our focus right now is to get all of these things aligned so that by the end of this term, we have the ability to link the new council strategic plan with, a refresh of a visioning document for the community, and then combine that with the tools that we're using to plan individual projects and to allocate resources. So there's no date as such that we would come back and get this rubber stamp by council from a business planning process. It's more about demonstrating to council that when you see budget 2022, that this is the mechanics behind the recommendations that you're getting from staff when it comes to budget 22, the final capital review, for example, and other decisions throughout the budget process. So this is more to align that reality for council when they see the next budget. So we won't stand up with a report on the IBPP, or at least we were planning on. You would have a sense that the things that we're moving forward are coming from this as a core. And as the organization behind the future recommendations that we'll make as a staff to council.
Councillor?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Going once, going twice. Done. Thank you, Mr. Sale. Thank you, Martin. Appreciate that. Council, I'll call for adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Kim. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. We'll see you all tomorrow.